Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you Dr. Matt Accurso. In the fall of 2014, I gave a TED Talk titled Why I Teach My Children to Fail. And instantly, I had people asking me to come speak to their company or speak to their organization or their team. And it was failure. That was the topic that just really resonated with people. And when I launched the podcast last year, I had intended on failure being a part of my message, but I come to realize that failure is my message. We all experience it, and it hurts. And it leads to just a lot of people lowering their goals, settling for less, or letting go of their dreams. And my mission is to help you normalize failure and use it to boost you to greater levels of success like it has for so many greats in the past. You know, the Michael Jordans, the Richard Bransons, the Steve Jobs of the world. You, my audience, have told me that you enjoy learning not only the stories and habits of successful people, but also how they were able to fail but still find success. And to help you realize that failure is just a necessary step on your path to success. Because of this, I am changing the name of the podcast. I'm changing it from Wrestling with Success to Success Through Failure. The name change is going to just really help more clearly define to those who come across the show that my core message is failure. It's about failure. And it's also going to help alleviate any confusion that the show is about wrestling or solely for wrestlers. While in many ways, I define my identity as a wrestler, this show is just far bigger than that. The guests will remain primarily former athletes because I believe that the athlete's experience provides a powerful context for understanding the value of failure. The format of the show really is not going to be all that changed either. So it'll be pretty much a similar format as all the other shows. I hope you like the evolution of the show. I hope you'll share it with other people in your social circles and on social media, et cetera, and just even in person and emailing episodes to people so that you and I can help others understand the value of failure and turn their eyes upward after failure so we can use it as a stepping stone on our paths to success. Thanks for listening, and thanks for sharing. Dr. Accurso is a leading authority in human potential healthcare and has been featured in Inc. magazine, among other media outlets. He's a world-leading expert in helping executives and entrepreneurs access peak performance through cutting-edge, research-supported strategies such as lifestyle genetics, cellular detoxification, and advanced customized nutritional solutions. These clinically proven strategies help increase energy, productivity, and well-being. He also speaks internationally on advanced performance strategies. So there's a lot of stuff there. I can't wait to dive into this. But for the listener, if you don't have time to listen to the entire episode, and I've said this before, but if you don't have time to listen to the whole thing, or if you hear something you like but you don't have time to write it down, make sure you grab your free copy of the action plan. If you haven't done this yet, man, get these action plans. There's like 60 of them in there now. They're incredible. They're basically the cliff notes from all of my episodes, from all these guests. There's the quotes, there's the links, there's the resources. It's incredible. Plus, there's about 8 or 9 other awesome resources like a mastermind ebook and a couple other things. But anyway, you get all that at jimharshawjr.com/action. jimharshawjr.com/action. Dr. Accurso, welcome to the show.
Man, Jim, it is a pleasure and honor to be here with you.
Yeah, man, we've had some good guests, and you are going to be a good addition to the group. So,
appreciate that.
Human potential healthcare. What is human potential healthcare?
Yeah, human potential healthcare, it quite simply is, addressing the root causes of why the body goes through energy downregulation and concentration issues and brain fog. A really great way to explain it is essentially, we've all heard someone, or maybe yourself have said, I don't feel the way I used to feel. I don't feel like I'm 30 anymore. I don't feel like I'm 25 anymore. And the reason that we say those types of things is because our performance was at an all-time high at some point in our life. At some point in our life, and you know this being a wrestler, Jim, is, there was a time where you were just an absolute stud in that season of your life, and you had your A game on, and you were performing at optimum level, and you knew what it felt like to perform that way. You knew what the swagger felt like. You knew what that air and that confidence felt like. And then there are points in our life where we don't feel that. And the core of human potential healthcare is that your body was made to thrive and perform at optimum level for the rest of your life. And now you may not ever get that feeling of being 23 because there is a factor that's called age. But we know now that there are cultures in this world that as they age, their actually performance goes up. And cultures like Okinawans in Japan, they have the highest number of centenarians in the world. They actually begin to gain muscle mass and lose weight as they age. And so there is a type of healthcare that can help a person access this type of performance. And that's exactly what my protocols are rooted in.
This is absolutely fascinating. And I hope the listeners are as wrapped into this as I already am. All right. So you talk about, there's two things you talked about, actually three. So optimal level, you say we can perform at optimal levels for the rest of our life. And mm-hmm. I want to ask you a question, not questioning you, but asking you a question like, how is that possible? So I always kind of think back of, anything that comes around in terms of health and diet and fitness. I always think back to like the cavemen, you know what I mean? Caveman
mm-hmm.
days, like, there's a million different diets out there. And like sort of the common theme is like, eat like a caveman, you know what I mean? Like eat healthy stuff, eat natural stuff, don't eat processed stuff, and you're going to be okay. And you talk about, mm-hmm. Increasing performance throughout your life. I go back to the caveman. I'm like, well, you really have to be, at peak performance physically, I guess, in sort of a certain phase of your life in those times, in evolutionary times. And then, you lose, I've always heard you lose muscle mass as you grow older, and I hit 40 this year. And I certainly can sense that a little bit. Maybe it's more mental than anything, but it seems like, losing muscle mass is probably just normal. You kind of hit your peak in terms of physical peak, and now you're sort of approaching maybe a wiser, more age of maybe more of a mental peak. Tell me how that's possible, how everything you just said is possible, and get into that a little bit, because this is fascinating. Yeah,
it is. It really is. There's something called epigenetics, and the study of epigenetics, and how the genetics are important, but the things that surround your genes are even more important. So for instance, when you take a culture like Okinawans and you look at all the things that they do to stay young and vibrant, there are core pillars that they utilize to stay young and vibrant. And I will say this, kind of like to interject. Some people say, well, that's a totally different culture. That doesn't apply to America. Well, there's actually a blue zone. A man named David Butner wrote a book called Blue Zones. And essentially he studied centenarians around the world. And there is a blue zone in California. And it's, I believe, and I forgot the town, that it's a Northern California town. But essentially, they have a ridiculously high number of centenarians. So it's not just in Okinawa, it's in our own country as well. And I think, getting back to what you talked about, cavemen and ancestors and all that, I think it's really important not to forget our roots and know that they did some things really right and they did some things really wrong. But, there was a type of evolution that happened from where they were to where we are now. And I think we have a lot of knowledge to know, how the body reacts and develops and what optimal performance really looks like. We know that repetitive movements, like heavy amounts of jogging and doing something over and over and over again is really bad for the joints, and it's not going to be good for your joints over time. So that's why, adding functional movement into a regimen is so important, because you not only want to build muscle and you not only want to burn fat and be in the best shape of your life, but you also want it to be functional, meaning that when you're in your 70s and 80s, you're still going to be, active. You're still going to be surfing, when you're that age, or you're still going to be climbing mountains, or whatever you do, you're still going to have the potential to do all those things. And so getting into, what are the pillars, or what's the foundation behind all that, is essentially, looking at creating a clean environment for your genes. And that's where epigenetics comes in. We know that environmental toxins, pesticides, herbicides, chemicals in our hygiene products, in our cleaning products, the things that we're, putting in our mouths day in and day out, the things that we're putting on our skin day in and day out, are causing epigenetic change within the body. And it's causing our genetic blueprint to not respond how it did for our ancestors. And so that's why it's so important, when we talk about genes, is to really create that blueprint that our ancestors had, meaning, what are the types of foods that are going to be most congruent with your body? What are the types of movement that's going to be most congruent with your body? And then matching that. And that's why I think everybody should have genetic testing at least once in their life, to look at, what type of ancestors they're coming from, what type of diet will suit them best, what type of movement pattern will suit them best, and then base a lot of things on that. And there's also, a lot of other testing that you can look at for gut health and neurotransmitter health, to see, how the brain actually responds, with dopamine and serotonin and melatonin, for sleep and rest. But I would say, the crux of it, leaving the testing out, would be, really getting back to a diet and a lifestyle that's congruent with who you are. So
I usually wait until the end of the episode to start about action items, but let's dive right into it, since this is where we're at. What do we do? Like, what are practical things that I can do, that the listener can do, whether physically or diet wise, that can help us, live longer, live at operate at an optimal level for longer in our lives than we might otherwise? How do we increase our performance and maintain muscle mass as we age? How do we do those things? I mean, any real practical tactics you can give us?
Absolutely. There's a lot out there, and to get really simple, because I can get really science heady, and then I can also go really simple. I'm going to go the simple route
for us.
Yeah. Keep it simple. The fact is, I can potentially talk about a few supplements that are really powerful at the end of this conversation, for, people who just want to keep their performance up. They want to gain more energy. They want to be more productive in the boardroom. They want to feel more energetic and more younger. And there's things that you can do for that. But on a really basic level, focus on a morning routine. I cannot emphasize enough how important your morning is and how sacred your morning is. My morning is I look at it as one of the most important board meetings I have for the day. If someone asks me, hey, do you have time in the morning to connect? I say, no, I have a commitment. And that commitment is not actually with someone, it's with my morning routine. And if I don't get my morning routine, my whole day gets thrown off. So I can tell you, Jim, that right off the bat, sleep is one of the most important high performance tools that we can utilize. Rob Wolf says it best. He says, if you want to kill someone quickly, take away their sleep. And sleep is the primary anabolic state of the human body. You don't sleep, you die. So the National Sleep Foundation recommends 7 to 9 hours of sleep on average. I would say, somewhere in that realm, everyone needs to be shooting for that type of sleep. Throughout your day, 20 to 30 minute power naps also increases alertness by 100%. And that's a study that's done by the National Sleep Foundation as well. So I can't stress enough that rest for the body is so important. And we undermine that as high performers. And I know I do every day, running a company and doing the hobbies that we have and having families, sleep comes last. And I have to work on it every single day. But if you just put this into perspective, 2 days of sleep restriction leads to a 3x increase in lapse of attention and reactivity. So even when I speak to athletes, wherever I go, I always say, if you're not sleeping, your reactivity time is very, very low. and you are not going to be able to respond to situations like you would normally be able to respond to. If you want to put your body in a state of emergency mode and you want to feel like you're 10 years older, get no sleep, or get less sleep than you should, and it will crush you. So that's definitely one of the things that's really important. I would say if I were to give you some hacks to help with sleep, if someone's having a problem with sleep, I know I had a problem with this when I was running a very high volume clinic. At night, I would not be able to go to sleep until 1, 2 in the morning. I would take 3 to 500 milligrams of magnesium before bed to increase adiponectin for fatty acid metabolism. And that actually helps a lot with sleep. Also, going to bed before 11:30 actually allows certain organs in your body, and there's research on this, it actually allows certain organs in your body to heal within the hours of 12 and 2. So things like the liver and the adrenals heal between the hours of 12 and 2. So if you're not getting to bed till after midnight, you're going to start getting into adrenal fatigue. And roughly 20 million Americans deal with that. And they're taking supplements and they're eating organic and they're exercising more and more and more, yet they're not getting results. So just a few hacks for people who are dealing with the rest problem.
Yeah, it seems like there are so many pharmaceutical pills that we have for solving problems when so much of it can be handled through proper sleep, proper nutrition, just proper exercise, proper supplementing even.
Yeah.
Instead of going straight to, surgeries and pills and everything else. You just see it more and more. The older I get, the more I sort of educate myself on this kind of stuff. It's just apparent that so many problems come from just simply not treating ourselves right. And to be honest, a lot of people don't know how to treat themselves. I mean, I think a lot of the folks listening to this show, they're former athletes, so they have an idea and they know what it feels like to have performed at a peak level at some point in their life. Mm-hmm. Now the listener is the type of person who wants to perform at a peak level in their job. They talk about they want better work-life balance. They want to be able to stay focused at work. They want to be more present when they're home with their family. They want to make more money and all these things, right? And it all comes down to performance, right? It's peak performance for the real world.
Absolutely.
And for the listener, if you haven't listened to a lot of my episodes, if you go back to episode 24 with Carl Pills, you'll really like that episode because we talk about nutrition and how it affects sleep and some different things there. So that's just a reference for another episode you may be interested in for the listener, episode 24. But Matt, can you tell us more about your morning routine? Like what, everybody kind of probably, I imagine, should have a little bit of a different morning routine, or maybe there's sort of different, we have different environments. I've got 4 young kids and, everybody's in a different sort of scenario. And what are some things that we should be doing when we wake up? Okay. Take us from the moment we wake up to the moment we step, across the threshold at our place of work.
Yeah. I will say the first thing is you want to develop a time that you're waking up every morning at that same time. You don't ever want to say, I'm going to sleep until this time or sleep until that time. Or even if you're feeling tired, I always say, you can't make up sleep. So if you didn't get sleep the night before and you're going to say, well, I'm going to sleep in today, I'm going to make up for it. You don't make up sleep. That sleep is gone. So what I say is you need to go to bed earlier. Don't sleep in later. You just need to go to bed earlier. And that's how you're going to recover your body. The thing that I do is I wake up at 5:50 every morning, like clockwork, and I imitate the Greeks. So I get outside right away. I take deep breaths. I do something called ACTS, which is adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. And it's just a methodology that I go through to get my mind right, to get my perspective right. I really believe that our day should start with gratefulness. And when we start with gratefulness, we're not going to be pointing the finger at other people and situations. Right when we wake up, we're going to point the finger back at us, and we're going to say, am I doing what I need to do to make my environment a better place, to make my workplace a better place? So I always start with ACTS. That's my personal thing. And then
what does that stand for again? ACTS
stands for adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. And just to explain that for a second, I just start out with,
and just real quick for the listener, you don't worry about memorizing this because I will have this in the action plan, but go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah. So I start out with just, adoration. So, being thankful, for God and my life. And, I start out with adoring God and who he is and the impact that he's had in my life. And then I start out and then I go into confession. I confess, my faults and that I can't do it alone and that I need him in my life. I need him to direct me where I need to go. And then I go into thanksgiving. I thank him for everything in my life. I thank him for my wife, my kids. I thank him for my mentors that I've had. I thank him for the little things. I thank him for the air that I'm breathing. I thank him for maybe, the smell of pancakes coming over my fence from a neighbor's house. I try to get into the moment as much as I can. And then I go into supplication, which is I intercede for people in my life. I pray for people in my life, people who need, anything and everything, healing, financial issues, things like that. And that grounds me. And then getting outside makes my body feel better. Occasionally I'll jump in the ocean. I know you and I have talked, Jim. I'm a big surfer. So, I got to get in the ocean at least twice a week. Hippocrates would describe the healing benefits of the ocean as thalassotherapy. And so I always say, if you can get in salt water, some people are like, well, I'm not around the ocean. I can't do that. Well, you can get Epsom salt. You can put it in a tub and you can soak it in Epsom salt. But what it does, seawater is similar to human blood plasma. So your body reacts very positively to being in salt water. Also, sea mist is filled with negative ions, which is excellent for the blood and the lungs. And then magnesium hydrates the skin. So really great benefits from being in salt water in the ocean. So I always try to get in the ocean at least 2 times a week. And then by 6:15, I'm in the gym with my friend and, we're like 2 mongooses on PCP. We're just going crazy in the gym. I never miss Mondays. That's my rule. No matter what, even if I get crushed on Sunday, I am going to be there on Monday morning. And then I'm making a thing called my Mick Jagger shake, which is online. If any of your viewers want to see what I do, but it's a shake that I do that has healthy fats in it, and it's got some greens in it, and it's got some superfoods in it. So I enjoy my shake. I never turn my cell phone on before 8:30. So anytime I eat, my cell phone is always off. So when I'm eating my shake in the morning, my cell phone's off. I'm letting my body digest, because if you have your cell phone on, by the way, when you're eating, your body's not digesting nearly as well as it should, because then you're going to start thinking about things. And then let's just say you read a text that doesn't agree with you. All of a sudden your digestion gets thrown off. And we know when there's stress involved, your body is not in a wine and dine mode. It's in a fight or flight mode. So that's going to cause all types of hormone downregulation. So I never look at my phone. And then by 8, I'm in the shower with my personal hygiene routine, which is kind of long. Maybe that's another episode. And then by 9 o'clock, I'm seeing health participants. I have my marketing Mondays, my learn and grow Wednesdays, and my imagination Fridays.
Wow, that's awesome. That sets you up for an effective day.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to tell you what I put in my shake every morning, and you can tell me good, bad,
nice.
What I need to improve.
Yeah,
all right, here's what I do. All right, ready? I have broccoli, spinach, and carrots. So that's the vegetables I put in, and sometimes sugar snap peas. And then I put in strawberries and a banana, a little bit of Greek yogurt, some kefir, peanut butter, and flaxseed.
Boom. Man, you're rocking it.
Is that a good one?
You're rocking it, man. It's a really good one. I would definitely make some changes.
All right. What do you got? Changes.
I would say you want to watch for peanut butter. And the reason you want to watch for peanut butter is I know. No, trust me, man. I will crush a whole jar of peanut butter instantly if I let myself. But I will say that peanuts have an aflatoxin on them. And there's a type of peanut that doesn't, and it's called Valencia peanuts. So if you do use peanut butter, you want to use Valencia peanuts. And the reason there's a toxin on peanuts is because how they're kept, how they're stored. They're not properly stored most of the time, and a toxin will build on the outside of the peanut. And I can tell you, it will wreak havoc on the immune system. It'll wreak havoc on energy levels, hormones, things like that. Now, some people are more tolerant than others. Some people are like, well, I eat peanut butter all the time. I don't feel anything. And I always say, you don't want to play Russian roulette. That's the only thing. Everybody's different. You can have one person that is exposed, let's just say, to mercury in an amalgam filling. I have people who develop rashes all around their mouth, and they get thyroid conditions from it. And then some people are still living with it in their mouth. They don't have, a single symptom. But I always say, careful when you're looking into if you're healthy or not, because a lot of times we judge our health by how we feel. We say, hey, I feel great, therefore I'm healthy. When the fact is health is not how you feel, it's how you function. And so getting back to your shake though, not to go off on a rabbit trail, but I would definitely change the peanut butter. I love how you have the vegetables in there, man. That is so crucial. I mean, broccoli, one of the best cruciferous vegetables you can eat. Really, really good for the blood, really good for alkalinity, all those things. Some things that I would add to your shake is I would definitely add some herbs to your shake. Herbs are, one of the best things we can do to supercharge our immune system. One thing I'm using in my shake right now that I'm in love with is called chaga, CHAGA, and it's a mushroom. And you should add that to your shake, Jim. But it's full of beta-D-glucans, which help balance the response of the body's immune system. So really, really good for the immune system, especially around wintertime. Some people find that, colds are a little bit more predominant. Chaga has beta-lulinic acid, which helps break down LDL cholesterol, which is bad cholesterol in the bloodstream. And it also has phytoesterols, which fights viruses. So, I mean, the food is a power food, really, really good for you. And then I would, I know garlic makes your shake taste absolutely wonderful,
Sure.
but garlic is actually a superfood that I incorporate into my daily routine. I don't put it in my shake, but black garlic is my thing right now. Black garlic is extremely high in antioxidants, but it's antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, antiparasitic. Yeah. So, and it's a really good chelator for heavy metals. So is parsley and oregano. So if you can put any of those in your shake without it making it taste absolutely horrible, I'm Sicilian, so I have to bathe in it every day. But but yeah, I would definitely recommend doing things like that. And then turmeric. Turmeric's a really, really great one too. Ginger.
I can add some of those to my salad. That's
salad.
Okay.
There you go.
Cool.
Yep.
So those are some good foods to add to our diet. Any other things that we should avoid? You mentioned Valencia peanuts because they have the stuff on them. You mentioned that they grow.
Yeah, the aflatoxin.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
You said flax, but you said seed, right? You said flaxseed.
Yeah, it's like flaxseed powder, basically.
Yeah, flaxseed powder. So this is what you want to watch for with flaxseed powder and flaxseed oil. Flaxseed can go rancid very, very quickly. So when I say rancid, there are certain oils that are very good for you, and there are certain oils that are rancid. So for instance, canola oil is rancid. And the reason that it is because it's heated to a temperature that's beyond what it can stand. And now you're killing all the beneficial elements of the oil. Flaxseed is the same way. When you grind flaxseed, a couple days later, it is already starting to go rancid.
Wow.
So that's, I would recommend, Jim, that you get whole flaxseed and you blend whole flaxseed. And I'll tell you, once you put that in the blender, it's powder in a matter of, seconds.
Yeah, I have had flaxseed, the whole seeds before. Right now I have powder, but I'll go back to the whole seeds. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, go back to the whole seeds. It's really, really beneficial for you. If you do an oil or a powder, you only want to have it in your refrigerator for about a week. So, and I know that's unrealistic because when you buy a bottle of oil, it's going to last you months. And when you buy powder, it's in a bag. So I recommend just, staying away from the flaxseed powder and the oil. And then I believe everything else you had in your shake sounds fantastic, man. You said you put kefir in there.
Yeah.
One thing you want to watch with kefir is...
Kefir's like a yogurt drink for the listener, in case you don't know what that is, like a yogurt drink.
Yeah. Exactly. I always say anything you buy at a grocery store. Do you buy it at a grocery store?
Yes.
Okay. You want to watch for sugar. So I always say get the unsweetened brand. And then also when you're consuming dairy, just know, I'll give you a rule of thumb. When you're delving into your nutrition, you can go online and you can find all different types of information. I mean, then there's research that proves other research wrong and vice versa. But here's a good rule of thumb. When you look at your nutrition, think of this mnemonic. Think of meat, fat, Sally. So meat stands for MEAT, meat. Fat stands for your fats in your diet. And Sally stands for sugar. And then Sally is a cow. So meat, fat, Sally. Sally is a cow. And the reason that that's important is because the four most crucial elements in your nutritional regimen should be meats, fats, and then sugars, and Sally is a cow, which is dairy. So meats, fats, sugars, and dairy. And dairy is crucial because whenever a cow is injected with antibiotics and hormones, those antibiotics and hormones are going to go into your body. So if I ever have a person that's dealing with any type of degenerative issues, brain fog, concentration issues, energy issues, depression, I always go back to, okay, we have to get really clear on what your nutrition looks like, and we have to get it as clean as possible. So I always go back to these four things. So this is really my secret weapon. If I can get your dairy and your meat clean, oh my goodness, you are going to feel 10 times different. It's almost, I always feel guilty because the person's like, I don't know what you did, but whatever you did, it changed my life. And I feel guilty because I'm like, all I did was change your dairy and your meat, and we made it cleaner. So basically dairy,
organic, we should go to organic meats and organic milk.
Absolutely.
Is that right? Okay.
Organic meat, organic milk, and even stepping it up further, if you can get raw milk.
I grew up on raw milk. Yeah.
Yeah. And raw milk has all the probiotics that's going to break down lactose. And that's why we have a lot of lactose intolerance in our culture nowadays. I mean, if you were living in the 30s and 40s, you would have never heard of lactose intolerance. Now It's everywhere. And the reason is because all of our milk, for the most part, is once again heated beyond a temperature that it can stand. So now we don't have the natural occurring probiotics to break down the lactose. So with your kefir, Jim, I would definitely recommend no sugar, and I would recommend either making it at home or getting a brand that's as close to organic and raw as you could possibly get.
Okay, yeah. So I use the kefir because of the probiotics.
Yep.
And but it's flavored. It has sweetener in it. And then I use the plain Greek yogurt, so it doesn't have any sugar. So that's what I'm trying to avoid sugar there. But okay, that's really helpful. And again, for the listener, you don't have to remember all this stuff. This is all going to be bullet pointed and outlined in the action plan. JimHarshawJr.com/action. All right, one more thing on sort of maybe it's diet or maybe sort of performance here. The afternoon, like I'm focused in the morning, but in the afternoon, after lunch, depending on the day, I'm not as good in the afternoon. I get to that sort of afternoon fog and lack of focus. How do we battle that?
Yeah. So one of the most important things is fat in our diet. We have a society now that's consuming less fat than ever before. One of the key secrets to the high performers that I see is they consume fats throughout their day. And when I say fats, I mean avocados, nuts and seeds, coconut oil. I'll give you a real quick secret. If you take a spoonful of coconut oil and you consume it at any point of your day, that is instant energy. That is a medium chain triglyceride. Your body's going to assimilate it like that. So that is instant energy. I always say that's more powerful than a can of Red Bull. Coconut oil is. So
wow.
Take
coconut
a spoonful
butter the same
of coconut
thing,
oil
or different.
Coconut butter has the actual coconut content, like it has the white pulp in it, and that's fine. But the coconut oil is even more condensed down. So I would say, coconut butter, you can absolutely consume it, but the coconut oil has a higher amount of medium chain triglyceride in it. So you're going to get more energy from it.
Okay, so early afternoon, I keep a bottle of that in my desk. I mean, is that
absolutely
right? Okay,
absolutely.
And then you take what, like a teaspoon?
You don't need to refrigerate it. I would take a tablespoon. Yeah, take a tablespoon of coconut oil. Just know that, by not eating fat, your body is essentially, it's going to start regulating what we call leptin and ghrelin. So your body, you can turn your body into a fat burner instead of a sugar burner. And that's why if anyone has a problem with weight issues, like weight loss resistance is directly related to two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. So leptin's for energy, which reduces appetite and weight loss. Ghrelin is, just think of grr like a bear. Ghrelin makes your body want food. So if you're constantly hungry, now if you're a hard-hitting athlete, you're burning more calories than you're taking in, and you're always going to be hungry. But I just mean for the average person, who's hitting the weights every day, and they're not like supercharged functional movement man every day or woman, then you're gonna want to take in good fats, because you're gonna want to turn on something called ketosis, and it's up to you.
I've heard a lot about that lately.
Yeah, ketosis is huge. There's a group of runners in Ohio that are collegiate runners, and they were literally going into a lab with a few PhDs, and basically they were getting these runners into ketosis, and these guys were running 60, 70 miles and not consuming glucose and not consuming any type of carbs at all. And their energy levels were through the roof. And the reason is because they got these runners in ketosis, in a state of ketosis, which is you're burning fat, you're burning ketones. You're not burning sugar. When your body starts to burn sugar, that's when your energy plummets, because your fat stores are made to be consumed. Your sugar stores are made to be consumed by fat. So you're actually taking it in a reverse direction when you start to burn sugar. So I always say, eat good fats, eat the grass-fed butter, eat the coconut oil, eat the coconut milk, raw cream. Broths with fat in it is really good. So if you make a bone broth, leave the fat in it. Sometimes people will skim the fat off and it just like tears me up inside. I'm like, leave the fat in the bone broth, because that's one of the best fats you can consume. So I usually have bone broth once a week, twice a week potentially, and then if I fast, I'm having it 4 times a week. And it's one of the best fats you could possibly consume. It'll get your body into ketosis, because a lot of times people have a hard time with ketosis because you have to eat 80% fat throughout your day. And if you think about that, that's actually really hard to do. But with bone broth, that's a really accessible food that you can consume, daily and get into that ketosis state.
Wow, this stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. So how did you get into this? I mean, where did this all start? I know you were a competitive surfer at one point. Tell us a little bit about your background and how this all came about.
Yeah, so when I was young, honestly, Jim, it started when I was 8 years old. My uncle was a doctor who wanted to get to the cause of why people didn't heal, why people didn't function properly. And I remember going to a seminar of his and being in awe of how passionate he was about what he did. So I walked away from that seminar, and I remember that night I said to my mom, I know what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I never looked back, Jim. I got into a time in my life where I got into surfing, and I kind of stepped away from my calling for a little bit just because I wanted to enjoy life. And that's where I got into surfing. I started surfing when I was 13 years old. Some of the most amazing breaks on the East Coast, the Outer Banks, OBX in North Carolina, New York. There's a place called Montauk in Suffolk County. And then there's an area of West Palm Beach called Reef Road. And if any surfers are listening, they're flipping out because those breaks are like some of the best breaks on the East Coast. But I started surfing, and really the reason I surfed was to get away. I always called it liquid therapy. It just helped me get away from the world. I felt like I was putting a boundary between myself and all my problems. So I started doing that, and I enjoyed it. And then I started going to surf expos and handing around my mixed tape. I wasn't a rapper, but I was a surfer, and I had a tape that I would hand to these promoters. And if they liked what they saw on the tape, they would send you free stuff. So I wasn't in it for the money. I was just in it because I wanted the free shoes and the shirts and stuff. So and in high school, I mean, if you're getting stuff like that, you're on top of the world.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Yeah, so I started doing that, and got really involved with competitive surfing, with Coastal Edge and Surfing America and the Tommy Tant Classic in Flagler Beach. And then after that stint, I looked around and I said, I need to pursue my calling. I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. I had a friend who got badly injured, and he was a pro surfer and just ended his career. And it woke me up. I said, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to do my calling. And I love surfing, but it's not my passion. So I went and pursued my doctorate degree and followed the lineage of my cousins and my uncle, who are all doctors practicing and getting to the cause of dysfunction and disease and performance downregulation. So I started to do this, and I'm in love with it. 7 years later, I have had the privilege of seeing over 300,000 people, and it's just a blessing to do what I do day in and day out. I love to see people transform. That's really my sole passion. I love seeing individuals and families begin to see how smart their bodies are. When I come face to face with that type of transformation, nothing ignites me more.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I love helping people and seeing the transformation in their lives in different ways. So I can definitely relate to that. Now, Matt, aside from helping people with performance tips and things like you were talking about there, you've built a really successful business. You work with entrepreneurs, you work with executives, you work with successful people who want more. And you yourself, you're a successful guy, you're a doctor, and you built this great business. Can you share with us a time that you failed, a time where you failed and you had that, that hopelessness, that overwhelming self-doubt that comes with failure? Maybe take us to that time and maybe how you worked through that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of failure, Jim. So I'd have to think real hard about, the one that sticks out. I would say, I've always considered myself a person that's, like for instance, I consider myself a doctor of cause. And so when I think about my life and I think about some roots of the failure, I constantly go back to, what were the things that really affected my life the most. And one of the things that I always go back to is school has never been a strong point of mine. People will say, well, you're a doctor, so you must have been kind of good. Well, in today's standard system, I would have been diagnosed with ADHD, placed on a couple meds and sent home. But my mom was very proactive, and she knew something was deeper. Because when I was 7 or 8, I had a 75% hearing loss. And I remember I had to have a clock, I still remember the way it looked. It was this huge, bright yellow clock. No one in the class had this except me. So, talk about embarrassing. So this thing was stuck on my desk, and it's because I couldn't tell time at that age because I had missed how to actually do it. I couldn't hear properly, but I was really good at faking it because I was embarrassed. So I would read people's lips. And so the issue held me back. It affected my grades considerably. I learned to tell myself I couldn't learn. It wasn't until later that I figured out it had nothing to do with my intelligence. I learned to work harder than the next guy. I had to listen harder, and I had to work harder to make the grade. So that was always a root in my life, even into my high school years. I didn't enjoy school because I learned that it was just really hard for me, and it was a kind of a learned response, like this is a miserable process. I don't want anything to do with it. Only until I got into my college years, and I started to love learning. And I remember I was in a physics 1 and 2 class, and I literally made the highest grade in the entire class. And it wasn't because, I'm some special talented person. It was just because I put in the work. I had to work really, really hard. And something that I always told myself is, if the only thing that I see that's different about me is that I will die on the mountain, meaning you may have more talents and you may be smarter than me. But if you and I, climb a mountain, there's 2 things that are going to happen. It's either you'll get off or I'm going to die on this mountain, and I think I just developed a really hard exterior, like work ethic. You just got to work. And I know, how that is, Jim, and being a wrestler, and seeing the accomplishments that you made. I listened to your TED Talk, and it's just astounding that what you went through and you made it to the top. And the thing is you had to go through failure. You know, you said you failed 3 times or maybe more. It was the same thing with me, you know, so I had to fail, you know, multiple times. And that's, you know, tests and, you know, classes. I mean, I can't tell you how many tests and classes I failed early on until finally, you know, it just clicked within me, you know, that I'm going to have to put in more work than anybody else around me. And if that means I'm up later and I'm up earlier, then that's what it's going to take. And one of my mentors said, you know, if this passion and this calling is important to you, then you're going to do anything and everything to make it happen. And that's what I did. I finally made a decision.
You know, most people, you know, when they encounter struggle, they encounter failure, they just go, man, that's too big of a mountain to climb. And when you meet and talk with people who succeed at some level, you realize that they just chose to face that fear more. They chose to face that failure more and keep going despite the failure, because the failure that's the first step. It's like, that's what happens along the road is the failure. So it's great to hear that, you know, it's great to hear that, you know, you can still get there despite your early setbacks and early failures. So
absolutely.
Matt, before we let you go, do you have a book that you can recommend, maybe a book or books or any resources that you could recommend that could help us with some of those things that we talked about earlier, the peak performance type diet and sleep, et cetera?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, I'll tell you, if you wanted to learn more about that science, you could definitely go, you could read any of Dr. James Chestnut. You know, he's a big mentor of mine, Dr. James Chestnut, and his books. He writes a book called, and I'm going to butcher it, but I think it's called The Wellness Paradigm. And if you want to learn about, you know, why I do what I do and the science behind how to get the body well and get to the cause, that book is amazing. If you're more wanting to learn about, you know, psychology of success, and I know, Jim, you could probably go off on books that you know of. One of the things that I'm a big advocate of is learning where we come from and learning why we think the way we think and reframing and restructuring how we think. So Wild at Heart by John Eldridge is an amazing book. You've read it?
Yes. Great book.
Yeah. I mean, just changed my life when I was 14 years old. Changed my life. Captivated, if you're a woman and you're wanting to go delve into that, Captivated, also by John Eldridge, is amazing. Lynchpin by Seth Godin, awesome book. And then Hannibal and Me. It's what history's greatest military strategies can teach us. And that's by Andreas Kuth. So, you know, those books really helped me in my journey to not give up and to keep pushing the envelope on stuff. If you also want to learn more on the science behind what I'm talking about and learn more hacks and strategies for your life, you can also go to elevays.com, elevays.com. And then if you put a backslash and consulting, you'll go to my face and you can learn a little bit more about what I do and how I work with people, and some of the processes and procedures that I use. And I'm a big advocate. You know, anything you read of mine, you're going to get value out of it. You know, even if we don't work together, you know, I always want someone to get value from going to one of our sites. You can also go to superhumanentrepreneur.com and you can find a ton of resources there too.
Excellent. And again, for the listener, I will have a list of all those books he referred to, as well as the links that he just mentioned. I'll have a list of those in the action plan, jimharshawjr.com/action. Dr. Accurso, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was extremely enlightening. I basically got a personal nutritional peak performance coaching session there. So thank you.
It was my pleasure, man. I really enjoyed this conversation, Jim.
Awesome. I did as well. And for the listener, make sure you grab that action plan. There's tons of great other resources there. And until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.